Hello, I'm Rosemary Moon and I want to talk to you today about my Christmas whiskey collection for 2016. I've been busy taking my still photographs of it, but while I've still got all the tinsel and glitter out, it seems like a good idea to chat to you about my whiskies, which are very different from the ones you're going to find in supermarkets at the moment. And let's face it, the smaller distillers and makers really deserve a slice of the Christmas market. So first up, I've got Nomad. Now this is the Nomad Outland whiskey, and it's actually been sold by Gonzalez Baez, but that is a company, a sherry company, that is part of a much bigger drinks dynasty, if you like. So here we have a whiskey that is created in Scotland and matured in bourbon barrels for the first years of its life, and then it is shipped to Jerez and actually matured there in Spain in PX barrels. So PX, Pedro Jimenez, the richest, sweetest sherry of them all, and I love sherry. So this contributes huge fruity nuts and nuts from the wood, but raisins and sweetness, almost dates and figginess to this whiskey. And that's what gets you first on the palate with the Nomad Outland. And then you get the flavour from the bourbon wood, the vanilla and the spice and the pepper comes through underneath. So this is a young and youthful whiskey, but it's one that is going to deliver sweetness on the palate first and be brilliant with some of the sweeter things that we enjoy at Christmas. Now, I must say that the bottle is something I don't know anything about. It's slimline, but with rather elderly hands, I do have to say it was a two-handed pour for me. So just think about who you're buying this for. Young people will love it, but anybody with slightly arthritic hands like me might find it a little bit of a challenge, and you certainly don't want to waste any. So that's Nomad Outland, a new whiskey that is really worth trying. Now, all my whiskies, as I'm primarily a food writer, all my whiskies have been selected to go with the traditional foods of Christmas. My second whiskey is from the Arran distillery, and it is their sherry cask finish. Now, the Arran distillery is one that's of great interest to me for two reasons. First of all, it was the first distillery I came across that was really talking about how well their whiskey goes with the artisan foods produced on the island of Arran nearby to the distillery. So that was something that I noted and clocked. The second thing is the Arran distillery was started by Paul Curry and his father, and of course it's Paul Curry that has now set up the tremendous Lakes distillery in the Lake District. So we kind of know that things that have come from the Arran distillery are going to be good. So this whiskey, their sherry cask finish, is finished in Oloroso barrels. So although an Oloroso sherry is also on the sweet side, it is much drier than the Pedro Jimenez used for the Nomad. So this is a very elegant whiskey. It's very complete in the mouth. There aren't any sort of high spots and low spots when you first start to taste it. It is elegant and refined. It has a sweetness about it, but that is really well balanced with the spice. The other thing about this whiskey that you might find really useful if you're not watching this video until quite close to Christmas is that this is available in Marks and Spencer. So long as you have a food hall near you, you will be able to get hold of a bottle of this. Very reasonably priced, and another lovely whiskey. So I'm just going to move these along, slip that into the tinsel with the Nomad. And then I'm going to move on to my third Christmas dram. And this is from Tommental, and it's their 10-year-old. So like the Nomad, it's an extremely youthful whisky, but it's a classic Speyside. It's from the Glenlivet area of Speyside, which has, it is said, some of the finest water in the valley. And this is a whisky that is very sweet on the palate when you first taste it. And then it has delicious floral notes. It's light, it's elegant, it's very feminine. And that, of course, is accentuated by the fact that this is in American oak, so bourbon barrels again. And basically, whiskies that are matured in American oak do tend to be slightly more feminine. Now, when I say feminine, they're just a little bit softer. So this is a gorgeous whisky. The notes in it, the sweetness notes in it, I find are almost like heather honey. So they're not cloying. They have a floral characteristic. And it means to me that this would be a wonderful whisky with smoked salmon, with cold meats, with fish pie, if you have fish pie on Christmas Eve. And then just with canapes and drinks and nibbles and things when people come around. People come around, bah, humbug. I want to have my whisky to myself. No, that's not true. It's always great to see friends. But also, this would go just as well with mince pies. So I first came across the Tommental distillery because my whisky women loved their 12-year-old Oloroso cask finish. And I wanted to give another of their whiskies a chance. I wanted to have another taste of one. And if you were a Terry Wogan fan, you'll know that he was always talking about Tommental when the snows came to Speyside, because it's very often the first village that gets cut off in the Highlands. So in this very sad year, we've lost so many great people this year. It seems completely appropriate that I have a Tommental whisky in my winter whisky collection for Christmas in 2016. So there we are. Just look at the difference in colour, actually. You know, it is pale, and certainly against that Nomad, you know, which has been in the PX sherry barrels. You know, this one, which hasn't been in the sherry barrel, but just in American oak, is a very pale but mouth-watering colour. Now, talking about colours, any of you who are real traditionalists will be really struggling with the fact that I'm an elderly woman talking to you about whisky, but I'm now going to ask you to think about buying a whisky in a purple bottle. Goodness me. And a whisky that is from a company that is perhaps better known for its beers. This is from Adnams. And they, of course, are at Southwold. They're famed for their beers, but they also have wonderful, wonderful wine shops. And this is the second of their whiskies that I've tried. Their standard malt is in a bright blue bottle. And now this is their triple malt, which is made from malted barley, wheat and oats. And it's a 5-year-old whisky. And it is matured in new American oak bourbon barrels. And gosh, when you have the first mouthful, there is so much going on there. But it's really interesting. There's tannins and leathery notes to it, and so much flavour. I'm just really, really keen to see what happens to this whisky as it ages, because I think that it's got such a lot happening that it should mature into something of very great character. But it is delightful now as a teenager. Now, the first time I tasted this whisky was at the end of a long and busy day, and we'd made sandwiches with gorgeous sourdough bread and cream cheese and smoked and cured pork loin and lots of French mustard. So if you can imagine that sandwich in your mind, there was lots and lots going on. And this whisky just sat with it fantastically. So it makes me think that on Boxing Day, with all those pickles that you have with your cold cuts, this is going to be absolutely fantastic. But it's also going to be a whiskey to sit by the fire and watch a movie with the youngsters in your family and really enjoy. So a lovely, lovely whiskey, and certainly one that's worth trying. Now, if you're actually a little more like me and a little on the elderly side, and obviously very, very elegant and refined, you might like to take a bottle of Stronachy 18 as your dram for the Christmas season. Now, if you follow my whiskey videos, there is already a whiskey video dedicated to this gorgeous dram. You will have to go online to buy it, or you can pick up the telephone to AD Rattray, and their online sales is called the Whiskey Angel, because they are the only people that have the Stronachy. As far as I know, it would be worth checking Masters of Malt or the Whiskey Exchange, but AD Rattray is where you'll definitely find it. Now, this is a Speyside whiskey. Stronachy itself is long since gone as a distillery, but AD Rattray were the sole distributors for it, and eventually they managed to analyse one of only 4 bottles left and found a distillery who could create a whiskey very akin to that for them. Again, it's a bourbon barrel matured whiskey, but the depth of flavour in it is absolutely gorgeous. And the nose on it is extremely beguiling. It really gets your taste buds going and it makes you want to drink it. With the Nomad, I found that that had a very interesting nose when I first nosed it, but it quite soon dissipated. This is a nose that will just go on growing until you eventually give in to actually tasting it. Yes, there are sweet notes, but there's dryness and spice, and it's just an absolutely beguiling dram. So out of this, we have a range of whiskies that will suit any age and any palate. And I think even if you have guests who think that they don't like whiskey, if you start them with something like the Tommental or Tommental, they will perhaps think, actually, I really do like whiskey. This is a whiskey definitely for the aficionado. This is, I would say, a young person's whiskey, and as indeed would this one be, but that wouldn't be to the exclusion of a true whiskey lover, because there's so much going on here. So take a look online. Remember, you can get the Arran in Marks and Spencer's. I got that in a local bottle shop that had a very good selection of whiskies. But I'm recording this 2 weeks before Christmas, so hopefully if you watch it very soon, you'll have a chance to get online and order some whiskey, either for yourself to enjoy or to share with your friends and family. Well, I guess I'd probably better clear up the dining table so that we can have our supper. Thank you for watching. Have a very Merry Christmas, and I look forward to sharing more of my whiskey adventures with you next year. Bye for now.